Years earlier, 12-year-old Ila is on a train, clinging to the memory of her parents' last promise to visit the park when the flowers bloom in spring. Spring never comes again, and that promise lingers in her mind as the last warmth before her life changes entirely. Left alone in the world, she slowly grows used to moving from one relative's house to another. In her aunt's home, the children harass her until bruises form on her skin, and no one intervenes when her uncle's temper flares, especially after losing money at the gambling tables. In another house, she humbles herself and promises obedience, willing to do anything just to remain. Yet, she is sent away once more. A different relative dismisses her simply because she is a girl, declaring she would only become a burden. And so, she continues moving, learning that staying anywhere is never certain. Over time, abandonment begins to feel ordinary, even coming from her own mother. Eventually, one relative refuses to keep her, but hands her a paper with a name, directing her to find Berg. That single name becomes her next hope and destination. She boards a train that crosses the border from Levita, the city where she was born and raised, to Berg. When she arrives, a quiet sense of connection warms her, knowing it is her father's birthplace, and she feels grateful that she can speak the Berger accent. For a brief moment, memories of a time when her family lived in harmony float through her mind. Searching for the address, she approaches a postman for guidance. He reads the name on the paper, Bill Lure, and since he is headed there himself, tells her to follow him. Along the way, she notices the Duke's grand mansion and wonders what kind of life Bill Lure leads, as a gardener, in such a magnificent place. Finally, standing before him, uncertainty floods her. She confirms his identity and introduces herself as Layla Lulin. As she struggles to explain why she has come, the postman hands Bill the letter. The letter reveals that she is Albert Llewellyn's daughter. It explains her mother's departure after an affair, Albert's descent into alcohol, his illness, and death. It details how she has been passed between relatives who treat her poorly, and states that the sender's family is too poor to care for her. Among all the relatives connected to her, Bill is the only one considered capable of taking responsibility, though he is free to send her to an orphanage if he refuses. Bill is taken aback. Though related, he never knew her father. Divorced and financially strained, he feels the weight of a responsibility he never asked for. Yet, as he looks at her small, thin figure standing with only one suitcase, the situation becomes impossible to ignore. She tells him she will soon be 12 and that she can read and help if needed. After work, he takes her home. The quiet house makes it clear that he lives alone. He offers her food and watches as she eats, noting her small appetite, but insisting she finish. When he asks if she is afraid, she explains that he does not shout or hit her, and that he feeds her well. Her gratitude unsettles him, revealing just how little kindness she has ever known. Though his financial situation is tight, he begins to consider seriously what it would mean to let her stay. However, he tells her to remain indoors until her residence is fully decided. The next morning, she shyly asks if Bill slept well, and he gives a warm, positive response. Seeing him preparing breakfast, she quietly offers to carry the dishes to the table. After they eat, she thanks him sincerely, but he insists that she eat more, and a small contented smile spreads across her face. Soon, news begins to circulate throughout the mansion that Bill is raising a young girl. The maids whisper among themselves, some with doubt in their voices. They find it unusual since he has lived alone for so long after his wife passed. Rumors about his wife's inability to have children resurface, and they wonder how a man like him could possibly raise a girl. Yet one suggests perhaps he might surprisingly be good at it, given his natural talent for nurturing flowers. After all, he is the mansion's best gardener, and has even been recognized by the great lady of the household. Still, others argue quietly that flowers and children are not the same. Layla gradually becomes familiar with the grounds and the people in them. She offers a maid a small bunch of flowers and in return receives some cookies, thanking the maid politely. Meanwhile, whenever anyone asks Bill about the girl, he responds vaguely that he will think about it. He makes it clear that she cannot stay indefinitely, and that he must decide on her future. Spring arrives and it becomes a common sight to see her moving alongside Bill, helping with small tasks and learning from him. Despite her presence, many employees still believe that Bill is suited only to care for flowers, not a child. Visitors begin coming more frequently. Someone brings leftover cookies and bread from the previous night's tea party. When he protests that he does not care for sweets, he is reminded that they are for ILA. Over time, he notices that people seem to use her as an excuse to come to the house. One brings clothes, another brings books, and even ladies who had never visited before now arrive. Some simply appear without any reason at all, and he finds it mildly troublesome. A lady explains that it is because ILA is beautiful, kind, and polite, qualities that naturally draw care and attention. She remarks that it is delightful to watch the girl scurry through the forest and gardens like a little squirrel. She also observes that it has been a long time since the Duke's territory had a house filled with such lively joy. She reminds Bill that the little Duke had been just like her in his youth. Suddenly, the lady notices ILA climbing a tree and expresses surprise. Bill explains calmly that someone had taught her that knowing how to climb is useful. The lady questions this sharply, but he insists that he is raising her properly. She argues that as a girl, ILA should be treated delicately, like a flower, and not raised with such ruggedness. Bill responds firmly, but gently, that she will be fine as long as she eats well and sleeps soundly. When asked again about her future, he falls silent. That silence makes them assume she will ultimately be sent to an orphanage. Yet in his heart, he carefully considers where she might go without being hurt again. Summer arrives and under his warm care, ILA continues to grow. The forest changes with each passing day. Plants bear ripe sweet fruits and animals roam further along with the warm wind. As she watches sunlight dance across the surface of the Schulter River, she feels a sense of freedom. As if the nightmare in Elvita had finally faded, she often sits in her favorite tree, writing in her notebook about everything she sees and feels. She carefully records each day, wanting to preserve these memories in case her life becomes difficult again. When she finishes writing, she returns home, feeling quietly content. One day, she asks where Bill is going. He explains that they need to go into town and that she should get ready. Her expression falls slightly, but he reassures her that they are only going to buy clothes. With the Duke returning soon, it would seem improper for her to greet him otherwise. On the way, she asks about the Duke. Bill explains that the Duke spends his summers in Arvis and is returning now that the season has ended. He mentions that even at 18 years old, the Duke still attends school. She is surprised by his age, and he adds casually that the Duke became Duke at her age. Finally, the day of the Duke's arrival comes. He steps down from his carriage and the employees greet him respectfully before guiding him toward the mansion. Another carriage waits and someone remarks that his mother still worries excessively, believing cars are dangerous. The Duke, however, is unbothered and seems content to try something classic after so long. At the mansion, the employees stand ready to welcome him properly. The mansion employees stand attentively, all being addressed, and ILA wonders why everyone seems so tense and nervous. Shortly after, a maid comments on her new dress, drawing a small, shy smile from her. Soon, the Duke arrives. His grandmother greets him warmly, and he embraces her and his mother, who remarks on how tall he has grown. They walk through the mansion, and ILA quietly wonders why no one else is greeting the Duke. Bill explains that the formal greetings are planned for the next day. On the way back, he casually tells her that Duke Albert often visits the forest, so they can ask for permission if needed. He adds that the Duke enjoys hunting, which surprises her. She questions why he hunts when the mansion already has more than enough food. And he explains that it is a pastime for nobles, noting that birds are the most challenging and interesting targets. She quietly hopes the Duke does not enjoy hunting too much, and he realizes he may have said things a young girl should not hear. A week later, Isla walks through the trees, listening to the soft sounds of the forest. She discovers that the eggs she has been watching have finally hatched. She finds the baby birds utterly adorable and notes that they should wait for their mother to return with food. The sight brings back a memory of asking her own mother if she had to wait for her before eating and the comforting reassurance her mother had given her. Suddenly, a larger bird appears, which she assumes is the mother, and she carefully climbs down. She wonders if they will see the fledglings fly soon and wants to tell her uncle about it. Just then, she hears a noise and peers through the trees, spotting someone approaching on horseback. She hopes he will pass by, but he stops and relaxes near the tree she is perched on. She watches him closely, almost losing her balance, but manages to steady herself. The man quickly raises his gun, aiming in her direction. Fear grips her, and she hurriedly explains that she only intended to descend after he passed. He asks who she is. She tells him her name, jumps down, and begins running. Bill notices her and calls out, asking what has happened. She explains that she met a tall man in the forest with piercing blue eyes and a voice that reminded her of a waterfowl. Bill chuckles softly, realizing she has encountered Duke Herat hunting in the woods. He reassures her gently that she will meet the Duke often in the forest. Suddenly, they hear her name called again, followed by the sharp report of a gunshot. Isla freezes in shock, but Bill quickly calms her and insists they head home safely. Marsh's Vinhart, apart from the king, is the successor of a highly respected family said to have everything. He carries himself with the dignity and restraint of the highest aristocracy, praised by everyone as the masterpiece of the Heart lineage. All around him treat him with sincere care and admiration, except for Isla, who sees him differently. That day in the woods, countless birds lost their lives under his aim. To him, the smaller the bird, the more challenging and fascinating the target. Isla notices the mother bird is gone, and the weak chicks have perished. Saddened, she takes it upon herself to dispose of them, quietly giving the Duke a nickname in her mind: the Slayer of the Beautiful Birds. Sitting on a mat under a tree, she wonders if she too might end up alone. Bill works nearby under the hot sun, but whenever she insists on joining him, he gently tells her to rest on the mat, eat peaches if she is hungry, and come down when called. She accepts his guidance reluctantly. Soon, a boy walking by stops and greets her. He asks if she lives there and she affirms, saying she stays with Uncle Bill. Curious, he asks if Bill is scary and she reassures him that he is not. She questions if the boy lives there too and he explains that he is visiting with his father, the family doctor, who is attending Daja Herat's examination that day. Silence falls briefly between them. He asks her age. She responds and he notes that he is 12 as well. He remarks that she seems small, but she points out that she is the same size as him. He laughs and admits he is the tallest in his class, yet still small compared to Uncle Bill, who towers over all adults. They chat comfortably, and he remarks on how pleasant it is under the tree. She wonders if he is reluctant to leave, and in response, she picks up a knife, cuts a peach in half, and offers him one. He accepts. After a while, he notices she seems sad and asks why. She tells him about the Duke hunting birds for sport. He considers it normal, but reassures her that he feels sorry for the animals, and does not partake in such activities, leading her to silently decide that he is a good person. She offers him another peach, which he accepts, commenting on its sweetness. Soon his mother calls him, noting it is time to go home. He introduces himself properly as Carl Mann, and Isla returns the gesture, accepting his handshake. He remarks that it was nice meeting her and promises they should play again. He also promises to bring her something delicious next time. Isla wonders if they will see each other again. Aware that she might leave soon, He runs off to his mother, who notices Ile under the tree and asks who she is. Kyle explains that they are the same age, and his mother turns to take a careful look at Ile. Shortly, Bill comes calling and Ile runs to meet him, her small feet barely making a sound on the floor. He asks if she is hungry, and she quickly tells him what she has eaten. She also mentions that she met a boy earlier. As they walk together, they suddenly see the Duke and his men engaged in discussion about their hunting. A familiar wave of sadness washes over her again. Bill greets the Duke politely, noting that it has been a while. He apologizes and explains that he would like Ile to stay in Arvis for the time being, though he has already asked permission from the two duchesses. He feels it would be disrespectful not to consult the Duke as well. One of the men asks if she is the child they saw in the woods, and the Duke recalls the girl perched in the tree. He nods in approval and they walk on. Ile keeps her gaze fixed on the bird one of them carries, lost in thought, until Bill gently reminds her that it is time to go home. Back at the mansion, a girl named Claudine sits at the table, sighing softly. She admits that it has been lonely and boring. The other suggests she go play with the boys, but she protests, saying they treat her as if she isn't even there. Miss Her agrees, noting that it must indeed be lonely for her since she has no friends her own age. Claudine suddenly asks about a child she has seen and insists that she wants to play with her. Miss Her initially declines, explaining that the girl is an orphan from abroad and not meant to be her playmate. Claudine persists, arguing that playing with the girl would be better than playing with a puppy. Her mother looks on in disbelief. Miss Her rings a bell, instructing the staff to bring the child. A maid approaches Bill to inform him, and he is surprised, questioning why. The maid explains that a young lady from the Brandt family specifically requested to play with Ile. Bill wonders why a high-class noble would concern herself with an orphan, but Ile quickly reassures him not to worry, promising she will return soon. When she arrives, Ile notices that Miss Her heart is strikingly beautiful. The woman calls her an adorable child and asks Claudine if she likes her, to which Claudine responds with a cheerful yes. Ile is puzzled by their attention and the questions. In this world of elaborate clothes and formal manners, it seems that no one usually considers her feelings. Miss Her heart then calls for the maids and gives clear, firm instructions. They lead Ile to a lavish room she has never seen before. There she is bathed in a luxurious bathroom dressed in soft, beautiful white clothes, and her hair is combed carefully. The touch is slightly uncomfortable, but she endures it, knowing it is Madame Her heart's order, and that any mistakes could bring trouble for Bill. A maid reminds her that Claudine is Count Brandt's daughter, and that she should behave with care in her presence. Ile nods and follows the maid, stepping cautiously toward Claudine, who greets her warmly and invites her to come in. Ile steps inside and Claudine immediately asks her name. She responds, giving her age as well. Claudine seems surprised, admitting she thought Ile was younger since she is so small. Ile thinks to herself that this is the second time today she has heard that, but she decides to endure it for Uncle Bill's sake. Soon, Claudine asks if she can play the piano. Ile says no, noting silently that it's her first time even seeing one. Next, she is asked if she knows how to arrange flowers, play dice, card games, or chess. Again, she admits she has never tried any of them. Claudine frowns, considers this for a moment, and then declares that Ile is just a child who doesn't know anything. She says she waited in vain, hoping Ile would be fun, but now thinks she is no better than a puppy. Left alone, Ile feels the urge to return home to Uncle Bill, but she hesitates, wondering if Claudine might come back. Soon, a maid appears and gives her a coin. She stands staring at it, unsure what to do, until the maid places it in her hand, explaining that it is polite to accept a gift from a noble. Ile decides not to dwell on Claudine's harsh words. Suddenly, she hears her name and turns to see Claudine accompanied by two boys. She feels relieved that the Duke is not with them. Claudine bids her farewell, leaving in a hurry. Shortly after, Isla stumbles and falls. Raising her head, she sees the Duke standing there, his gaze sharp and cold, as if she were an insignificant being that could be crushed. For a moment, the corner of his red lips curls up, but then he realizes what is happening, and the lingering pain that had washed over him begins to fade. The words Claudine had said, "She's no better than a puppy," echo in his mind. Isla bows and runs away, holding back tears. She dashes through the forest, the warm light from the mansion guiding her back. As she sees the house, a new understanding settles over her. The aching in her chest, the tightness in her throat. This is sadness. The next day, Bill asks if she plans to go to the woods. She shakes her head, saying she will stay at home. He nods, understanding. It has been 2 days since her visit to the main mansion, and she has been unusually quiet, keeping to her room most of the time. The house feels strangely still. Bill sits at the table, noticing how empty and silent everything has become. Before they eat, Isla carefully hands him the coin she received. Bill takes it, realizing why she's been so down since returning. He asks why she is giving it to him. She explains that the money is too big for her. But even if it is small, she wants to repay him for everything he has done for her. Bill looks at her, remembering the evening she ran back home. He had suspected she had done some chore that might have caused her injuries, but pretended not to notice, not wanting to make her cry. Now he tells her to keep it. She earned it. He explains that it was a job that involved helping an aristocrat, who was extremely bored. Isla is surprised. Bill smiles and congratulates her, saying that entering the adult world sometimes comes quietly without warning. She hesitates, asking if she isn't too young for that. Bill explains that being able to earn a living on her own makes her an adult. She thinks it is just 1 gold coin, but he points out that many people struggle to earn even a fraction. Then he offers her plenty of food and reminds her that he likes kids who eat heartily, like a cow. Isla asks if eating well will help her grow taller. Bill nods and asks if anyone has ever bullied her about being small. She admits it's just that she looks too tiny. He gives her apple juice and asks if she could buy a notebook and some colored pencils. Then she asks if he wants to buy something. When he jokes about something expensive, she promises she will earn more to get it for him. Bill smiles, noting he is looking forward to that. He thinks to himself that she is a bright, lovely child. She does not yet have a full figure, but she will grow into a very pretty young woman. Yet, he cannot shake a worry. Beauty can sometimes be like a poison for a woman in difficult circumstances. If she wanders without guidance, it would be easy for her to get into trouble. He wants to send her somewhere safe, somewhere he can trust. But no such place seems to exist. Days pass and Bill continues to ponder why he cannot let her grow up elsewhere while keeping her safe. The newly bought clothes become slightly crinkled as the radiant girl blossoms into full bloom. The small room that had served as a temporary space is now transformed into a gentle airy room befitting a young lady. Now Isla is 18, fresh and beautiful, much like the rose Bill has carefully tended all these years. Even so, she remains here in Arvis, still together with Bill, her steadfast guardian. Isla brings home a small basket of ripe raspberries and excitedly shows them to Uncle Bill. She beams as she notes what a wonderful harvest it has been and mentions that she plans to go pick more the next day, hoping to turn them into raspberry jam. Bill raises an eyebrow, teasing her gently, asking if she's thinking of starting a jam business. She shrugs with a small smile, saying it doesn't seem like such a bad idea after all. Then she hands him some of the peaches she picked as well, and he laughs softly, remarking that summer must have arrived again, seeing how well the peaches have grown. Isla feels a little thrill in her chest, happy that he notices the little things she does. That night, she stays awake in her room, reading quietly by the soft glow of a lamp. Exams are just around the corner, and she notices her eyes straining more quickly than before. She thinks about saving enough money to buy herself a pair of glasses, knowing they will help her study better. Her thoughts drift to the raspberries in the forest. She imagines gathering them all and making enough jam to sell, hoping to earn a little income for herself. Bill walks in and finds her still reading. He asks gently why she hasn't gone to bed yet. She explains that she wants to study a little longer. He nods with a soft smile, praising her diligence, but reminding her not to overwork herself. She accepts his advice obediently, feeling both comforted and motivated. Some time ago, Bill decided to send her to school despite protests from those around him. Many questioned why an orphan girl needed an education, arguing that even if she continued living in the mansion, she could eventually marry into a proper family or work as a maid for the Dutch. They didn't see the point of schooling for a child like her. Bill ignored their objections, believing strongly that ILA deserved the opportunity to learn and grow. Walking behind him each day on the way to school, ILA slowly discovers more about the strange world beyond the mansion walls. Each day brings new knowledge and curiosity, filling her with excitement. She eagerly shares what she learns with Bill, and he always responds warmly, telling her that she will grow up to become an outstanding adult. Those words settle in her heart like a gentle spell, and she cherishes them deeply. Determined to become that outstanding adult, ILA resolves to excel in her exams. Seeing it as the first step in repaying Bill for everything he has done for her, when summer vacation finally arrives, she feels both excitement and anticipation. She knows that the Duke will soon return now that he has graduated from college and been commissioned as an army officer, following the family tradition from the Royal Military Academy. He hasn't visited Arvis since the summer 2 years ago, because he served on overseas front lines. Now, as she thinks of his return, she remembers the distant sound of gunfire echoing through the woods. During the vacation, one of her friends talks excitedly about going on holiday with her family and asks about Isla's plans. She admits she hasn't decided yet. Soon, her friend points to a familiar figure nearby, and Isla turns to see Kyle. He waves at her warmly, and she waves back before quickly saying goodbye to her friends and running up to him. She teases him, asking why he came all this way, and suggests it might have been more comfortable if he had come to her home later. Kyle laughs, explaining that he decided to stop by since he was passing, adding that he even skipped tennis club practice just to walk home from school with her. His teammates, standing nearby, mutter complaints about his absence, noting that he is once again going to see that girl. As they walk together, Kyle admits that he ran as fast as he could to reach her and comments on how hot the day has become. Then he asks if she would like to eat ice cream, and she happily agrees. Afterward, she suggests stopping by the bookstore to check out a book she has been wanting, and he nods in agreement. Meanwhile, his teammates shake their heads, muttering that he should be reminded to come to club practice the next day, or they might permanently remove him from the team. In the bookstore, Isla shows him the book she wants. She speaks excitedly about the migratory birds returning for the season, explaining that she wants to write and document the different types of birds she observes during her vacation. Kyle listens quietly, his gaze lingering on her as she talks. He wonders silently whether today might finally be the day he should confess that he likes her. Isla notices him staring and she asks quietly if he wants to say something to her. He shakes his head, denying it, then quickly changes the topic of conversation. She insists that they go home, but Kyle hesitates. In his mind, he reasons that it's not the right time to confess because he doesn't yet know her feelings for him. Rushing into a confession might make her uncomfortable, and he doesn't want to risk their friendship. Still, he feels impatient whenever he sees her growing more beautiful day by day. He wants to be patient, wanting to see her smile for a long time. Then truthfully, he wonders if it's even necessary to start with the word lover. They have known each other for so long, and perhaps it would be better to become a couple right away, like a husband and wife who are comfortable with each other and live in a way no one else could. He imagines marrying her immediately after graduating from college, and wonders how she would look in a wedding dress. In his heart, he decides that no bride in the world would ever be more beautiful than her. Kyle Edmund's wife, Layla Artman. The thought makes him grin, and suddenly he bursts into laughter. Ila looks at him in surprise and asks why he's laughing. She teases, wondering if it's because she failed her geometry test. Kyle feigns shock while she reminds him that he wouldn't understand since he always gets perfect grades in geometry. He chases after her, laughing, and tells her they should go together. As they walk, he mentions the Duke's return and asks how she can remain uninterested. He notes that the mansion is in chaos because of it. Ila shivers slightly at the thought. Though it was Lady Claudine who humiliated her before, the Duke has left a different kind of scar on her heart. A scar that reaches deeper than the contempt and persecution she suffered as a wandering child among relatives' homes. Whenever she sees the Duke, that memory resurfaces, and she tries her hardest to avoid him. Kyle, trying to lighten the mood, wonders if he should become an officer like the Duke and earn medals. Layla teases him, reminding him he can't even kill a chicken. He frowns and asks why she brings that up again. He recalls a day last year when Bill had questioned why he kept coming to their house instead of going home. Bill pointed out that he didn't even eat at his own house, but came here constantly. He warned Kyle to stop coming over so often. Kyle had thought to himself that this was the only time he could be with Ila under the excuse of studying together, so he offered to pay for meals, and Bill reluctantly accepted. Bill had then given him the task of catching some food for dinner, but Kyle had failed miserably. Seeing him unable to catch a chicken, Bill had called him useless and good for nothing in the Edmund family. The word stung, and he had cried while Ila comforted him. Since that day, Kyle notices that Bill never calls him by name anymore, only good for nothing. Ila echoes the phrase playfully, confessing that she likes him because he is that kind of person. He questions if she's teasing him, but she quickly explains that she wants his hands to save people, not to shoot them. Kyle then asks if he should become a military doctor, wondering if he would earn a medal for that. She nods enthusiastically, saying it's an amazing job, because it saves lives and surely they would award a medal. Shortly, they see a car approaching and pause to let it pass. Kyle wonders if Darja Hahat is inside, but Ila corrects him, saying it must be Lady Hahat because Darga hates cars. He remarks that he doesn't understand why cars can combine beautiful design with geometric technology. She smiles, noting that he's talking about geometry again. He reaches into his bag for a geometry note he planned to show her, but realizes he left it at home. Ila decides to head home and tells him to make sure he comes in time for dinner and brings the note. Kyle asks if she's waiting for him or the note, and she teases that it's the note. He sighs slightly disappointed, but promises he will get it and return quickly. She tells him to take his time, and they part ways. Shortly after, the Duke in the car decides to stop and take a walk, stepping out into the surroundings as the sunlight glints off the vehicle. The men in the car stand nearby, watching quietly. One of them remarks that since the Duke arrived a week earlier than scheduled, there were barely enough employees on standby, and now he suddenly wants to walk alone. The Duke shakes his head and declines to respond, stating simply that he will see them later at the mansion. The men leave and he takes off his cap, walking slowly through the trees. As he moves, his thoughts drift to his mother's words, reminding him that he should get engaged this summer. He considers her advice carefully and realizes she is right. It is their duty to marry at the proper time and ensure the birth of a successor. His grandmother has long believed that Lady Claudine would be the ideal match to become the next Duchess, and Marcius agrees. Claudine Van Brandt possesses an excellent lineage and impeccable qualifications. A meeting between them is planned for this summer. He reflects that a life like his has everything perfectly arranged. Every detail set, every expectation mapped out. It leaves little room to desire or yearn for anything. Yet sometimes he admits to himself it feels slightly boring because everything is predetermined. In this life he has been the perfect child, the perfect student, the perfect officer. Now it is time to marry the perfect girl and become the perfect father, ensuring the continuity of the heart lineage, just as his grandfather and father did before him. Suddenly, a girl on horseback rides past him. She glances back, recognizes him, and immediately falls off the horse. His attention sharpens, and he wonders if she is the child the gardener took care of, if she still lives nearby. She scrambles to her feet, quickly apologizing as she gathers her scattered books. He calls her name, and she immediately responds with another apology. When she bends down to pick up her pen, he stops her gently, remarking that he is calling her. She raises her head, focusing on him, and replies that she is listening. Then, without another word, he walks away. She stands there, watching him disappear through the trees, puzzled by his behavior. She wonders if anyone else knows that he can act this way, and why he chose to leave so abruptly. She hesitates, thinking she cannot simply walk past him without encountering him again. Meanwhile, he continues moving forward, quietly, thinking to himself how much Ile has grown. She is no longer a child, but a young woman. Now, the roses and the pride of the Hoat estate are in full bloom. Summer has arrived, and the Duke returns to the estate. The servants move busier than ever, bustling about with countless preparations for his arrival, setting up for various parties, gatherings, and ensuring every guest is properly attended to. In Berg, the second most prestigious aristocratic family after the Herharts is the Brandt family. The Count of Brandt is one of the guests who requires special attention, particularly because of his daughter, Claudine. Though the ostensible reason for the Brandts' visit is to spend the summer at a relative's estate, it has become widely known that Claudine's visit has a deeper purpose, the announcement of her impending engagement. The negotiation between the families is advanced, and the arrangement is friendly. The objective is clear. Neither family is trying to conceal the truth. At the moment, Claudine admires the greenhouse, commenting on its beauty and praising Lady Herhart. Lady Herhart smiles, explaining that she has tended it carefully for a long time, and is looking forward to passing it on to a lady of the house, who will truly appreciate its value. She then suggests that the Duke show Claudine the paradise of Arvis while she attends to discussions with the family. The Duke rises and offers his hand to Claudine. And as he does, his mind flickers to the memory of Ile picking up her pen. There is no trace of his younger cousin in Claudine now. She has grown into a perfect lady, poised and polished. He escorts her with respectful formality, as if meeting her for the very first time. At the table, both families note that although the two have not been intimately close, they have known each other long enough to understand one another. Their union is a political marriage chosen because they are both nobles through and through. As they walk through the greenhouse, Claudine marvels at the birds. She asks about how they seem obedient to people, intrigued by the secret of their calm behavior. A man nearby explains that their wings are clipped. Claudine questions whether it hurts them. The man clarifies that only the feathers' tips are trimmed and offers to show her if she is curious. She asks for permission and the Duke nods, granting it. The man brings a bird forward. The Duke inquires about its type and the man responds that it is a songbird known for singing beautifully. He notes that clipping the tips of its wings prevents it from flying too far and running away. Claudine asks if they truly cut them, and the man reassures her that it is done carefully and protects the birds from danger. The Duke picks up the bird, but the man takes it from him, explaining that it takes time for the birds to get used to having clipped wings. He then asks Claudine if she wishes to try taming it. She politely declines, turning to the Duke, and suggesting that they return to the table. The Duke gently takes her hand, leads her back, and instructs the man to bring the bird to his room. Later that day, Ile brings a small bouquet of flowers to the mansion. A maid thanks her, and Isla casually mentions that it seems someone important is coming to the estate. The maid leans in smiling and informs her that the entire Brandt family is arriving soon. Isla's eyes widen when she hears that Claudine will be among them. When the maid adds that the visit is related to Claudine's engagement, Isla expresses genuine surprise, feeling a mix of curiosity and unease. Meanwhile, in the forest, Isla gathers ripe raspberries, glancing toward the estate in the distance. She had hoped the forest would remain quiet even after the Duke's return, but she senses that something important is about to happen. Thinking it might be better to avoid trouble, she decides to stop picking raspberries for the day. Wanting to finish before the Duke occupies the forest and before Claudine begins calling her repeatedly at the estate, the car is on standby for the Duke, who had been scheduled to meet with the director at noon. However, he chooses instead to take a walk along the Shelter River and through the Arvis forest. He loves the scenery there so much that he has converted the boathouse into a small cabin. His mother and grandmother rarely visit the riverside, leaving the cabin as his private world. Here he spends hours gazing at the river and forest, reading books, napping when bored, and above all, swimming, which he enjoys the most. As he relaxes, his mind drifts to the marriage negotiation between the Hoart and Brandt families. The process went exactly as planned, and the engagement is set for 1 year. By the end of the summer, it will be announced publicly, solidifying his position as Duke Hoart. He reflects that there is little reason to continue his military duties for much longer. After spending a year or two as an imperial guard, he plans to focus fully on his family's affairs once married. Meanwhile, high in a tree, Isla sits comfortably with a peach in one hand and a book in the other. One of the papers she was reading slips from her grasp and floats to the ground. As she peers at it, she catches sight of the Duke swimming in the river. She blinks several times, unable to believe what she sees, and prays silently that he doesn't notice her. But before she can react, he begins moving toward her. Heart pounding, she quickly jumps from the tree and begins running through the underbrush. In the midst of her flight, she collides with Kyle, who is on his way searching for her. Concerned, he asks if something has happened in the woods, if she saw a wild animal. Isla, breathless, thinks that encountering a wild animal would have been far less alarming. Kyle urges her to calm down and asks about the raspberries she went to pick. She suddenly remembers them and exclaims, but in her panic, she shouts that she cannot go back for them and dashes away again. Meanwhile, the Duke, now dressed in walking along the riverbank, reaches the spot where her raspberries were growing. He frowns, wondering if she is trying to wipe out the raspberry species in Arvis. His thoughts drift back to the first day he saw her perched in a tree, her name echoing in his mind. He shakes his head, unable to believe that she still climbs trees purely for fun. Isla has finally gotten her eyeglasses, the result of selling raspberries just as she had planned. As she walks home, she marvels at the clear, crisp view around her, but a shadow lingers over her thoughts. She wonders why such awful memories keep surfacing on a beautiful day like this. Her mind drifts to the incident of seeing the Duke swimming in the river. Despite it being her favorite spot, she decides it's best to avoid the river until the Duke leaves. Unwilling to risk another uncomfortable encounter. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls her name. She turns and sees the Duke walking with Claudine. She greets them politely with a soft hello. Claudine glances at her thoughtfully, noticing how much Isla has grown into a young lady, and then asks about her, genuinely curious. Claudine explains that they are on their way to have tea at a hotel, and invites Isla to join them. She glances at the Duke to see if he objects, but he remains silent, and Claudine gently insists that Isla come along. Isla hesitates briefly, thinking about the time she is supposed to meet Carl downtown, but realizes she has a little time to spare. She decides to go with them. At the venue, she feels a strange tension. Claudine's invitation puts her in a delicate position, physically present, but socially expected to act as though she is invisible. She has been in similar situations since she was 12. Yet, with her new glasses, she can see the Duke clearly, and his gaze makes her skin prickle with discomfort. She can't help but wonder if he isn't embarrassed about what happened the other day. During the gathering, both the Duke and Claudine casually mention inviting her to the upcoming party. Ila remains silent, unsure how to respond. After a moment, she politely asks for permission to leave so she can meet her friend Kyle. Claudine smiles lightly and nods, saying it was nice meeting her. Ila bows slightly, bids them farewell, and hurries out, leaving the Duke watching her with an unreadable expression. When she meets Kyle, he immediately notices her bright expression and teases her lightly. "You achieved your goal," he says, and she frowns, telling him not to tease her. Then she notices him smiling and asks why he's been grinning for so long. Kyle leans closer and jokes that pushing up her glasses makes her eyes look like a little mouse's. Ila scolds him lightly and he laughs it off, suggesting that they eat since he's hungry. Meanwhile, the Duke and Claudine are heading back to the estate. The road ahead is briefly blocked by a carriage and through the window, the Duke catches sight of Ila walking with Kyle. His eyes narrow as he realizes that Kyle Mann, the son of the doctor, is the one she was hoping to meet earlier. He can hardly believe that she left him behind to meet Kyle, and the thought lingers in his mind as they continue along the road. The next morning, Claudine's mother watches Ila and Bill through the window. She wonders silently if Ila is still living there under Mr. Bill's care. Claudine confirms it with a small smile, and adds that Ila seems to be growing prettier by the day. Her mother frowns slightly, questioning if it's truly okay. In her mind, she knows the answer. There's no way it is. She remembers that Ila was always pretty, but now she has exceeded even her highest expectations. Reuter's woman has a uniquely small frame, delicate features, green eyes that shine like jewels, and skin that is evenly white and flawless. That's why she suggested Claudine invite Ila to join them for tea. It would be interesting to see the Duke's reaction to such a young woman growing up on his estate. Yet, in her observations, the Duke lives up to expectations perfectly. Moderate interest, measured indifference, and impeccable dignity. Her mother worries, but she chooses not to dwell too long on the thought. Her mother remarks that Ila is still young and doesn't know men well. She begins to say that if it were her, but Claudine interrupts sharply, asking if her mother really wants her to worry about the men in front of Duke, her heart of all the eligible men in the world. She adds that the most respected men often have had a mistress or two. Claudine muses silently that perhaps something new might happen. Perhaps the Duke could be swept up by his desire for a beautiful woman, just as her father and countless others have been. But she quickly reasons that a man who knows how to treat women with respect is usually harmless. It is the ignorant, reckless men who cause problems. The Duke, she decides, is definitely of the former kind, the head of a family who would never abandon his duties, even for a moment of lust. Claudine allows herself a private thought. She hopes nothing inappropriate happens, but if it does, she would be far more comfortable with a woman like Ila, a gentle, compliant girl she could easily handle, someone who would never threaten her position. Her mother blinks in surprise. She recalls her own weakness and the repeated miscarriages that left her barely able to give birth to Claudine. Her mother admits aloud that there is nothing good about having a girl like Ila near the Duke and wonders why she hadn't noticed her in previous visits, despite coming to the estate every year. She resolves that she will have to speak to the Hoarts about it. Meanwhile, Claudine's thoughts turn inward. She worries that her father's love might cool, while he is consumed with the frustration of not having a male heir. And she wonders when a young, beautiful woman might appear, bear a son, and claim her father's attention. She pities her mother for living in constant fear of this, and she tires of that pity. Claudine challenges herself mentally. What difference would it make if the Duke were interested in a humble, beautiful girl like Ila? She concludes it is lust, nothing more. Her mother calls her name sharply, insisting that Claudine doesn't understand love. Claudine, however, reminds herself of the promise she made long ago. Never to live like her mother. Never to surrender to love that abandons her when passion fades. Instead, she will pursue a perfect marriage, one that safeguards her dignity. At another part of the estate, the Duke is holding a bright yellow bird, watching the world quietly. Through the window, he notices Isla moving about below. Meanwhile, Kyle is at Isla's home, but seeing no one there, he concludes she must be helping her uncle. He decides to wait, knowing she will likely return soon. As he waits, he studies her in his mind. Even with glasses, the future Mrs. Ettman is breathtaking. Memories flood him. Her promise to buy him dessert because he bought her a sandwich. The time he reminded her to hold on tighter during a bike ride. He wants to act, to rush toward her, but he reminds himself to be patient, to honor the promise he made to wait for the right time. Yet, every time she appears, his resolve melts. His heart pounds, heat rises across his body, and sometimes dreams leave him restless and guilty. More than anything, he fears that one day someone might suddenly take Isla away. The thought tempts him toward a reckless confession. Just then, he hears his name. He turns to see her approaching, wearing a wide-brimmed hat. Unable to contain himself, he bursts into laughter, teasing her that the hat is tacky. He jokes about where she got it from. Convinced she didn't buy it herself. Isla and Bill look surprised, but she quickly explains that her uncle bought it as a gift for her. Kyle takes a second look and after a moment of contemplation, admits that the hat is actually quite pretty, tasteful, even. They go inside and soon food is served. Leela gestures toward the table and suggests that they eat. Kyle, feeling slightly awkward, can't believe they've prepared all this for him. He hesitates for a moment, then smiles politely and starts to eat, still bewildered by their hospitality. Afterward, he walks up to her on the balcony, the warm afternoon breeze brushing past them. He asks quietly if she's still upset with him. Moving closer, he apologizes sincerely, his voice soft but steady. Then he brings up the hat gift. Why the hat? He asks. Isla explains that she asked for it herself. Kyle notes that she has never asked him for anything before. She goes on to explain that her uncle had been upset when she bought her expensive glasses without telling him first. He had scolded her gently, asking if she wasn't trustworthy enough to consult him. Bill had never once been angry at her before, and despite her explanations, the disappointment in his eyes had made her heart ache. So Isla had asked for a favor, a simple pretty hat. Kyle had bought it, choosing it himself. Some people had teased her for wearing something tacky, but she considers it special. To her, flowers are the prettiest things in the world, and a hat decorated with so many flowers must be the most beautiful. She tells Kyle this, and he feels guilty, muttering that he feels like trash for ever making fun of the gift. Hearing this, Isla smiles warmly, knowing he understands. Kyle promises not to tease her about it again. Just then, Mr. Bill walks in and notices Kyle lingering. You haven't gone home yet, he asks, frowning playfully. Kyle laughs, shrugging lightly. Uncle Bill then tells Isla that he is heading into town for a while. Kyle, watching them, feels an inexplicable pang of jealousy. He knows deep down that anyone who loves Isla has to accept second place because for her, the number one person will always be Uncle Bill. The two of them sit nearby reading stories. Kyle worries that this is the only time they can talk. While Isla is absorbed in the next chapter. He peeks at her from the corner of his eyes, marveling at how pretty she looks when she reads with complete focus. Finally, he calls her and she raises her head, momentarily distracted by something in front of the house. Kyle follows her gaze and sees the Duke approaching. Kyle steps aside and Isla follows, still brushing crumbs from her mouth. Kyle greets the Duke politely. Isla responds softly, explaining that her uncle has gone downtown for a while. She asks if the Duke needs assistance with something. He mentions that she could help bring some roses. Ile, a little surprised, clarifies if he means picking roses from the garden. He instructs her to select them carefully and bring them to a separate building. Then he leaves. Seeing her about to leave, Kyle suggests that they run the errand together. She waves him off, saying it's not a big deal. He hesitates, questioning if he should wait there, but she insists he go home. She teases, asking if his mother would be angry if she found him lingering here again. As she walks toward the garden, she wonders why the Duke personally came to ask for help. She concludes that perhaps he was just passing by and decided to stop. Kyle lingers nearby, calling out softly, and she waves back at him with a smile. Once she delivers the roses to the Duke, he inspects them and tells her to bring more, but in a blustery color this time. Ile freezes for a moment, surprised by his unusual specificity. The Duke keeps requesting more flowers, and Ile goes out again, carrying another batch. She notices that he is in his annex by the river, a private space that guests rarely enter, and even some servants face restrictions to access. She wonders if sending her here to deliver flowers is meant for Miss Claudine, who will soon be engaged to him. Perhaps that's why he wants bright-colored roses, ones that would match Claudine's taste. But the constant back and forth makes her rethink the Duke's reputation. How can someone who torments another in the middle of a scorching summer day be called a good person? She scolds herself inwardly and admits she absolutely hates him. On her way back, she encounters a man and a lady who commend her for her hard work. Curious, she asks where they are headed, and they respond that they are returning to their mansion. They bid her goodbye, which confirms that the Duke is alone in the annex. Anxiety creeps in. She steps inside, but wondering if he's asleep, debating whether to wait or leave. Suddenly, he opens his eyes. She announces that she's brought the flowers and hesitantly asks if she has to fetch more. He tilts his head and asks if she will do it if he requests it. She replies that she will if she made a mistake, but pleads that he tell her the color he wants this time. Her inner thoughts escape aloud, and she is momentarily embarrassed. He merely responds that it's fine and gestures for her to sit. She thinks she has matched the colors he wants, but just as she is about to decline sitting, he calls her name and reminds her that putting the flowers in the vase is part of her job. Ile admits her flower arranging skills aren't great. He asks if he should do it himself, and she reluctantly sits down. As he writes, he glances at her. Looking at her reminds him of the gold-colored canary in his bedroom. The bird that once flailed and screamed when moved, but gradually became tame over time, following him everywhere. Now it jumps onto his hand willingly, rubs its body, licks its eyes, and sings in soft, affectionate tones. He wonders quietly to himself, what about her? Ile informs him that she's finished and nervously asks if he likes it. He inspects the arrangement and confirms that it's poor. She apologizes, offering to bring a skilled maid next time. He tells her to sit and eat, but notices her perplexed expression. He wonders if she dislikes the reward for her work. His thoughts drift to a memory of her with Kyle. How she had eaten well and smiled like sunshine. He had wanted to give her a reward worthy of her level if she liked something like that. She thanks him, then says that she will head back if there's nothing else he needs her to do. He tilts his head and questions whether her words are merely polite, or if she would do more if he requested it. Ile sits down and begins to eat, though she already feels full from lunch and dessert. She wonders why her body is sweating so much after running through the garden, and doubts she will be able to swallow anything. Her mind drifts, questioning whether the food is meant as a simple gift or a punishment for the poor flower arrangement she made. The Duke removes her hat, reminding her that ladies shouldn't wear hats indoors. Her chest tightens as she recalls the way he had laughed so leisurely the last time she was in an uncomfortable situation, and how easily he orders her around as if she were nothing. She refuses to let the hat her uncle bought become another object for him to tease her. She rises, determined to leave, silently pleading that he return her hat. He insists that she should finish eating before taking it, but she refuses, feeling her patience fray. He lifts the hat just out of her reach, and her hands stretch toward it helplessly. Fear flares as memories of being pushed into a river by her cousin's surface, making her hesitate. He throws the hat through the open window, and it lands on the river below. Her heart leaps, but she clutches her glasses tightly, unwilling to risk losing them. She steps cautiously into the shallow water beneath the building, which deepens as she moves further out, reaching up to her height. Every step reminds her of past fears, yet she stretches desperately for the hat. Her arms strain, but the hat refuses to come free. The Duke approaches the edge, observing silently. He notes to himself that she cannot follow a simple instruction. Eat. And the hat would be returned when she is ready to leave. He wonders why she made such a fuss over a small thing. Now she's almost drowning. And without hesitation, he jumps into the water to rescue her. She sits up, clutching the hat tightly, her chest heaving. He watches her, curious about what the hat means to her. While she wonders why he is laughing in a situation like this. He winks and she feels a sudden urge to splash water at him, but he is already soaking wet. Still, she flicks water from her skirt toward him. He wipes his face, noting that she doesn't seem to be having much fun. Then he expects her gratitude, leaving her startled. She reflects that this wouldn't have happened if he hadn't thrown her hat into the river, but he counters silently, thinking it wouldn't have happened if she had simply eaten her sandwich. And considering how reckless it was for her to jump in without knowing how to swim, she endures, reminding herself that he is the Lord of Arvis, and she cannot risk causing any trouble for Uncle Bill. She bows, offering her thanks. He insists she repeat it more ladylike. She apologizes silently for not being a proper lady like others, but he presses her to try harder when she is in his presence. She stares at him for a moment, tightens her hat, bows again, and thanks him. Then she announces her departure, deciding within herself that she will no longer argue, or allow him to treat her as a joke. She runs back home, fighting back tears, remembering the same desperate rush of the time she had fled, clutching a gold coin. Her thoughts drift back to the day she had seen the Duke and Lady Claudine walking together in the forest, a scene reminiscent of a fairy tale, a beautiful lady accompanied by a handsome gentleman. She had stopped to watch, noting the gentle wind that blew Claudine's hat away, and how the Duke had stepped off the trail to return it. A gesture she had found elegant. Earlier, he had done something similar for her, but the feeling had been entirely different, colored by a cold expression, as if the act held no meaning. Today, her heart aches more than usual, and exhaustion weighs on her. She kicks a piece of dried fruit along the path in frustration, watching it roll away. Her vision blurs, and she realizes she has forgotten her glasses at the Duke's mansion. Meanwhile, he gazes at the glasses. As evening approaches, the breeze floating through the annex becomes cooler. The Duke notes that Isla's eyesight must have been quite poor, and he wonders if it is the reason she always frowns slightly. A memory surfaces of the child who had gazed at him with a furrowed brow, shabby and unimpressive. He stands and begins to toss and catch the eyeglasses in his hands, noting how her remarkable sparkling green eyes once shone with life, and how she emanated a fresh, sweet fragrance. He whispers her name softly, as if it carries the warmth of midsummer. Then he places the glasses into a drawer, and the image of those green eyes slowly fades. In the evening, the Duke embarks on a journey in his car, leaving the estate behind. At another end, Isla sits with her uncle. He reassures her that there is no need to worry about the glasses, explaining that they can simply buy new ones if they cannot be found. She accepts the words quietly, deciding that it is best not to mention that the Duke had thrown her hat into the river, causing her to forget the glasses, knowing it would only worry him unnecessarily. She holds on to the thought that the glasses must still be somewhere and resolves to retrieve them at dawn. At first light, she returns to the Duke's annex, searching carefully, but the glasses are nowhere to be found. A crow calls from a nearby branch, and she wonders if it has taken them. Meanwhile, Kyle is at home speaking to Phoebe, the rock pigeon trained by Isla's indomitable will. The pigeon has spent 2 years delivering messages faithfully. Kyle takes a letter from it, expressing gratitude for its hard work and offering a small reward meal. The letter explains that Isla lost her glasses, so she probably cannot make their library appointment today, and she apologizes. Kyle frowns at the thought, surprised that she could misplace them. He hurries out, mounting his bicycle while his mother watches with concern. She questions why he is leaving instead of studying. He explains that he is heading to the library. She probes further, noting Isla's name, and wonders how long he will continue these childhood friend routines during such a critical time. He pushes the worry aside, cycling swiftly toward Isla's place. Arriving, he asks if she has found the glasses. She shakes her head. He immediately suggests going into town together, so he can buy her a new pair. For a moment, he realizes that he has let his emotions run ahead, forgetting who I is, but she declines. The determination in her eyes is unmistakable. No matter what anyone says, she will not back down. Later, Isla goes with Kyle into the forest, searching for her glasses. As she climbs a tree, a flock of crows suddenly takes flight, scattering to the next grove. She pauses to question Kyle if he shouldn't go home, but he shakes his head, determined to stay with her. Suddenly, the Duke's car approaches along the forest path. The men in the vehicle glance at the two children, remarking to themselves about the scattered crows, joking that one of them must have taken Isla's glasses. The Duke notes to himself that all sorts of rumors surely circulate in the servants' world. Yet, he knows there is no way she doesn't remember leaving the glasses on the deck herself. Now searching among the trees and nests, she appears oblivious to the truth, and he wonders if she simply wishes not to remember. As the car passes, she catches sight of the Duke, and his gaze unsettles her, cold and menacing. A few days later, Isla ventures even deeper into the forest with Kyle gladly accompanying her. Despite her seemingly impossible efforts, the Duke pretends not to notice her, finding amusement in watching the wretched birds build their nests. Yet, as days pass, his patience for the children's antics begins to wane. He decides to spare some time from his busy schedule and heads to the annex. A servant informs him that Marcus Linman is expected to arrive by noon, earlier than anticipated. The servant explains that Madame has instructed special attention for the luncheon and pleads for the Duke to attend if he has no prior obligations. He nods in acknowledgement, and the servant leaves. Shortly after, Isla approaches the annex and rings the bell, apologetic for coming unannounced. She notices immediately that the Duke's demeanor has changed compared to the day he teased her with the hat. He maintains his composure even while working, handling the telephone and documents with calm precision. Isla observes the effortless way he remains composed and relaxed, smiling without losing his steady gaze, his posture straight, as if nothing could unsettle him. Though she understands why the Duke is admired and called perfect, the thought that he could somehow be involved in the disappearance of her glasses feels almost pathetic. She resolves that returning to ask about it is useless, and decides instead to continue her search among the nests she hasn't explored yet. As she turns to leave, the Duke calls her to wait, then instructs her to ask a question. She mentions the glasses she left on the deck the day she jumped into the water, wondering if he might have seen them. He responds vaguely, leaving the possibility open that he may not have seen them, or that he may have hidden them. She questions if he really would hide them, but concludes that such an action would be too cruel, far beyond what she thinks he is capable of. That night in the master suite, a guy notes that he didn't expect Lady Claudine to arrange a private meeting for everyone in such a secluded place. He guesses that the Duke becomes unusually generous when it comes to his fiancée. Claudine notices his tone and gestures for him to stop using nicknames, though others quietly support his remark. The guy reasons that it was obvious she's destined to become the Duke's wife, and he concludes that everyone simply got excited and drank too much. He apologizes for speaking out of turn. At the edge of the room, he spots a bird cage and is surprised by its presence. The bird flies to the Duke, who seems intent on taking care of it. He wonders aloud why the Duke would bother breeding birds and shooting at them. Feeling sympathy for the creature because it cannot understand the true nature of its master. He contemplates whether to laugh at the bird's foolish trust or pity it instead. He wonders what Claudine thinks, and she observes that both reactions would suit the situation. She recognizes the bird and questions if it has been named, suggesting one if the Duke hasn't given it one. The Duke dismisses the idea, noting that a bird is just a bird. The guy feels increasingly sorry for the creature, realizing it has entrusted itself to a hunter who won't even give it a name. Earlier, while Isla discusses her missing glasses with the Duke, a servant enters to deliver an important telegram. The Duke gestures, signaling that he wants her to leave, and Isla understands that she must depart without learning anything about her glasses. Still, she knows it is not the crows, but the Duke who has taken them. She wonders why and if he has some fascination with shiny things like crows. She considers whether she will have to visit him repeatedly until he returns the glasses, though she doubts he will do so willingly. That evening happens to coincide with a dinner party at the Duke's estate. Guests are present and celebrating late into the night, leaving the back building largely unvisited. Isla resolves to retrieve her glasses while the moonlight provides enough illumination for her to sneak around. At the party, the Duke keeps the bird nearby, but his thoughts drift to Isla. He decides to check the back building, confident that she will understand the meaning behind his words. He knows her well enough to predict that a girl who spent days searching through crow nests for her glasses will not give up easily, and that persistence is exactly how she will fall into his carefully laid trap. He lies down in the annex, holding her glasses in his hands, considering how she will react when she discovers them. He remains calm and patient. Suddenly, a soft noise breaks the quiet of the annex. Isla has begun sneaking in through the window. The Duke left the front door slightly open, making entry easier for her. Yet Isla chose to climb in through the window. It is not beyond his expectations, but he notes to himself that she always manages to surprise him. She hesitates in the dim moonlight, unable to see clearly, then begins searching through his drawers. The Duke observes calmly, unshaken by her intrusion. After rifling through the drawers, she wonders where her glasses could be. The Duke notes to himself that she is no longer a child and realizes he can accept this now, the reason he set the pitiful trap and waited for her to take it. He questions whether she is searching for the glasses he is holding. She freezes in surprise, caught between shock and the realization that he's there, wondering how to explain herself. She apologizes, insisting she did not know he would be present. He questions whether his absence would have given her permission to enter and whether she considers herself a thief. As she struggles to explain, she sees the glasses in his hands. Relief and embarrassment flood her at once. She explains that she only wanted to reclaim what was hers, but the Duke notes that her attempts at courage are futile. She still trembles pathetically. He begins to leave through the door, and she fears he might throw her glasses into the river, as he did with her hat. She rushes after him, pleading and explaining that she saved for a long time to buy them. The moon shines bright, illuminating her nightwear, and she immediately wraps her arms around herself and bends down, attempting modesty. He considers whether she is being overly dramatic, recalling that she has seen every corner of his body before. She reminds herself that it had been out of necessity, not desire. He questions whether she wants him to see her, but she forces herself to remain calm, aware that he could accuse her of theft at any moment. She continues to plead for forgiveness, and he reflects on her sudden ladylike demeanor. She insists that regardless of her behavior, he remains a gentleman. He muses that perhaps he is not, but she disagrees, insisting he is the greatest gentleman of Kelsar. He cannot believe the praise, and she explains that everyone around him thinks the same, leaving her almost certain of her assessment. She continues to plead for her glasses, emphasizing how hard it had been to obtain them and how precious they are. He finally places the glasses on her face, touches her lightly as he studies her, and moves closer. He recognizes the emotion stirring within himself now. A craving for Isla, the woman who grew up so beautifully, but he also recognizes the danger it represents. The intensity of this feeling is fleeting, and he questions whether it is worth staining his life to satisfy it. He concludes that she is not worth it, and that indulging this craving serves no purpose. With that, he allows her to leave. She bows and turns to walk through the forest, her heart racing. As she washes her face with cool water, her memory feels hazy. But certain details remain vivid. The deep calm blue eyes that seemed ready to swallow her whole, the heat of his hands, the texture of his fingers intruding into her mouth, the quiver of her breath beneath his touch, and the overwhelming embarrassment that followed. Now staring at her glasses on the table, she resolves never to see him again. And Isla, who is usually always in the garden helping Mr. Bill, has been nowhere to be seen for several days. A servant informs the Duke that all preparations for the hunting session are complete. Meanwhile, at Isla's place, Carl offers to help with the laundry, and she quietly appreciates his presence. He suggests going for a walk afterward to her favorite tree near the river, but she declines, noting that they can go next time because chores still need her attention. The last 10 days pass with careful avoidance. She stays away from the river entirely, doing her best not to run into the Duke. Carl notices the change, wondering if something is wrong and why she is staying home more than usual. He expects that she would wander more now that she has found her glasses. He also wonders why she isn't wearing them, and she explains that she only uses them for reading. Afraid of losing them again, Isla only goes to the garden when the Duke has left the grounds, and she runs out immediately whenever he returns, moving as if escaping danger. She resolves to continue living like this if it means avoiding him until the end of summer. Suddenly, they see men on horses, and Carl notes that they must be going hunting. Isla raises her head and catches sight of the Duke. She spreads a cloth to shield her view, thinking that when summer ends and autumn arrives, the Duke will return to the capital after becoming engaged to Lady Claudine. If she can endure only until the end of the season, perhaps Arvis will know peace again. The writers pass. Carl questions if she is feeling unwell and if she wants to go to his house, but she insists she will be finished with her tasks by evening. She suggests going inside briefly, but he doubts that she is truly okay. She thinks that Arvis Forest will finally feel peaceful once the Duke is gone, and the confusing feelings tied to him will vanish. Still, she plans to go into the forest that evening to attend to the birds that fall after the hunting. In the forest, the Duke decides to stay a bit longer, ordering his men to take the guests back. At sunset, he continues hunting birds, enjoying the act as usual. Yet, a subtle emptiness lingers. The reason feels inadequate. The birds fly desperately, seeking freedom, reminding him that the thrill is never complete. Isla moves carefully through the forest, noticing far more fallen birds than usual, scattered almost every few steps. Her heart tightens at the cruelty of the sport. Almost completing her task, she unexpectedly walks into the Duke. He mutters to himself that she keeps coming. He greets her and she notices him standing there, calm and composed, as if he had stayed back on purpose, anticipating her arrival to tend to the birds. Her eyes catch a red thread tied to the plover chicks that hatched along the river last year. A pang of disbelief runs through her. How could the life of a bird that had returned from distant lands to survive the winter end like this? She feels the weight of it, a strange mixture of sorrow and helplessness. The Duke instructs her to continue to complete her task. She moves through the forest carefully, picking up fallen birds and attending to the nests as best as she can. He asks about the thread, why she tied it, and she explains that she wanted to see whether the birds that had left would come back. She adds that she never wished to reunite with the bird under such circumstances. He remarks on the condemnation in her expression, questioning what the issue is. These are his lands, his hunting grounds, his birds. She hesitates, then reflects that to the birds, this forest is not his, but their home, the place where they were born and raised. He asks why he should care for the feelings of mere birds. She acknowledges it silently, but insists that such cruelty is unnecessary, that respect for life, however small, should exist. A determination rises within her, and she reminds herself that she needs more courage now. He questions whether she wants this to be a kind hunt, and she quickly apologizes for overstepping. He wonders why she cares so much for the birds, but she senses that her reasoning would not interest him. She tells herself that she will leave, feeling a mix of frustration and weariness, and starts to turn away. Before she can step too far, he shoots at another bird, reminding her that her task is not yet finished. She pleads for guidance, asking what she has done wrong, wondering if this is a punishment. He observes calmly, noting that he has never punished her. He does his job, and she does hers. He questions again why she is so fond of birds. Her mind drifts to the memory of her mother leaving her, and she realizes that birds have always been her companions. From her earliest days, they are everywhere, hovering nearby as she wanders, leaving when seasons change, returning if she waits patiently. That is why she loves them, why she feels their absence so keenly. She wonders if he intends to hunt in this manner again, and he replies simply, if needed. He glances at his watch, then moves forward, stating his desire for everything in his world to be exactly as it should, orderly and proper, with no one hiding, no one running. Confusion creeps over her as she asks what he means by that. He tells her to stay in her place, leaving the question unelaborated. She struggles to understand what place he means, but he walks away, leaving her with the thought that she must consider it carefully. If she finds the answer, perhaps he might grant her a kind hunt. The Duke has no particular expectations for Isla. All he wants is for her to stay in her place. An orphan living in his forest, a curious student who after graduation will become a teacher, always exactly where she is meant to be, quietly occupying the space assigned to her. Just as everything in his world follows order, so too should she. The Duke himself is born into a world governed by perfect order, and he grows to become its master. In his world, everything is simple and clear. Living up to the roles assigned to him is second nature. To his grandmother and mother, he is the proud heir. To his servants, a generous master. On the battlefield, a skilled soldier. To the board members, a competent businessman. He has always been something to someone and willingly fulfills the expectations that accompany it. Sometimes it is effortless, almost boring. But it is life as it should be. That is the world the Duke knows, the world he has seen, heard, and learned. But the lowly orphan who lives in his forest is different. She is nothing. There is no place in a duke's life for a presence that serves no purpose. And yet somehow owning something that is nothing feels strangely satisfying. It is new, unsettling, yet oddly pleasant. Her emotions, so unlike the measured, predictable feelings of everyone else, amuse him. And above all, her tears. He finds himself captivated by them. A woman who weeps with such quiet beauty, enough to make him want to witness it again. Later, he returns to the mansion where Lady Claudine greets him. She asks if he enjoyed his walk and mentions that she has been waiting for him. She compliments the hunt, noting how impressive it was and how everyone has been talking about it. He suggests she join them on the next hunt. She politely declines, admitting that seeing blood up close might make her faint. Then she speaks of hosting a gathering at Arva's soon, proposing it as a sort of trial. Once married, she will be welcoming the guests herself, and her mother suggested she practice in advance. She wishes to invite everyone she wants, and she questions if he agrees. He accepts. As the short summer night begins to wear, the Duke thinks that perhaps a gentler hunt next time would not be so bad. In the rose garden, Isla resumes her place beside her uncle, helping as she always does. She carries flowers to the ladies and Claudine instructs her to arrange them. When Isla asks to leave, Claudine requests a small bundle of red roses. Isla accepts and departs. A lady sitting nearby whispers that Isla's politeness feels almost like disrespect, and another agrees, noting the strange look in her eyes, as if she does not know her place. Claudine, however, chides them gently, explaining that Isla has had a hard life. She may have flaws, but perhaps a little kindness would serve her better than harsh judgment. The ladies murmur to themselves, considering Claudine too lenient. They think such girls should be properly taught before they assume any place of importance in society. Claudine reflects quietly that she cannot blame the ladies entirely. Even she cannot ignore the impression Isla leaves, a quiet obedience born not of loyalty, but detachment. While noble young ladies clamor for her attention, Isla remains unmoved, unaffected by Claudine's attempts to engage her. She endures, silent and self-contained, as if life is something to bear rather than enjoy. And yet, it is this very orphan, Isla, who stirs curiosity and intrigue in everyone around her. Soon, Isla returns with the requested red roses, asking if they are sufficient. Claudine thanks her and decides to give her a gift today, a poor orphan with the pride of a princess, still moved by the weight of a single gold coin. She offers Isla an invitation, a memory she hopes will endure. The two ladies beside her react with surprise. Isla hesitates, questioning why she has received such a gift. Claudine explains that it is a graduation gift, something to mark a memory she will carry with her. Isla wants to decline, but Claudine insists, her tone firm yet kind, leaving no room for refusal. The Duke walks through the town on an important duty, his eyes catching a glimpse of a beautiful necklace showcased behind glass. It gleams in the sunlight, delicate and exquisite, but he moves on without hesitation, his mind already occupied with the tasks of the day. At Bill's place, the mood is lively and anxious. A maid vents her frustration, upset at the ways of nobles she cannot comprehend. Rumors are spreading that Isla is to attend the Duchess's party, and talk circulates that Claudine treats Isla like her little pet. Bill frowns at the description, feeling it diminishes her, yet listens as the maid continues. She recalls how Claudine since childhood called on Isla whenever boredom struck, and now this invitation to a gathering of noble ladies adds to the weight of expectation. The act may be called kindness, but for someone like Isla it could feel intimidating. Bill reflects quietly, knowing Isla is not easily intimidated. She only needs to show herself briefly, make an appearance and leave without incident. The maid considers him indifferent and comments on how long he has been raising her, suggesting he should understand better by now. Bill admits that he is still deciding where to guide her next, still weighing possibilities and options. The maid murmurs that his thoughts seem endless, that even when Isla marries, bears children, and he eventually passes, he will remain